Live from Liverpool, the Dark Paranormal.
Hello everyone and welcome to your usual pre-season episode before the start of season 23. And as we say hello to you, we say goodbye to that intro. Because one of the many changes that are taking place is indeed the intro music. But there will be other changes too, as you will see as season 23 gets underway. Now, I've seen a few concerned comments that when I mention these changes, the show may not be what it is. But I can guarantee you, at its core, the show is exactly the same. It's basically getting a lick of paint and a new engine, but it remains the same. And as ever, if you disagree with any of the changes or you have your own opinions on them, you can let us know. And as I think you've understood by now, we will do, if enough people say so, any changes that you wish, because this is and will always be your show. And of course, next week on the 23rd, when we launch, is when, especially in the UK, all of the stores do their big January sales push. So now is the perfect time to try a free week trial of our Patreon. Just head to the show notes and you can try it right up to our highest tier, where you can gain access to our full back catalogue of Dark Bites for a full week and early access to things like the debut of season 23. And the second biggest perk for me anyway is the lack of adverts, especially this time of year, January sales. And of course, the biggest perk for me is the community. It's a like-minded group of individuals all interested in the paranormal, whether they be believers or skeptics. The one thing they have in common is common decency. In fact, thinking on it, they also have a special second thing in common. And I genuinely mean this, to make that Patreon the safest community to do with the paranormal I've ever encountered. And I have nothing to do with that. They have completely manufactured that themselves. And for that reason alone, I personally, if I didn't host the show, would definitely be part of that community. So if that sounds like the sort of place you'd now and again like to escape into, just check the show notes out and give one of them a click. But right now, as tradition expects, we have our pre-season show to continue with. Now, whereas past pre-season shows have seen the likes of interviews or we've played a Dark Bites episode from times gone by, we decided this time round, as it's all changed for season 23, we would simply give you a listener-submitted story, no sound effects, no bells, no whistles, just directly as it was received by us. So please sit back and enjoy our little appetizer for season 23, sent to us by our listener, Jacqui. Hello, Kev. I've been a big fan of the Dark Paranormal for a couple of years now. Me and my kids listen to it en route to and from school, and they get very upset when I inevitably finish the episodes on my way to and from work. I have thought about submitting my experiences / my family experiences for a while now, but I could never figure out where to start. I've experienced the odd strange thing many times throughout my life. Things that would scare me in the moment, but I would eventually explain away. Until the things that happened reached a point that I couldn't. I genuinely think I've managed to block some of those memories out. So I'm actually writing a portion of this with the help of my brother, Braid. I guess I'll try to start from the beginning. When I was 8 years old and my brother was 5, our lives were upended after my great-grandparents passed away within a couple of months of each other. I wouldn't say we were close to them. We only probably met them a handful of times, but they ended up leaving the house to my dad, which is where they both died. Now, the house itself was beautiful. It was a 3-bedroom home with a partially finished underground basement where my brother and I would eventually play pool and hide and seek when we were a little older and felt brave. There were 2 levels to the basement. One went to the garage, and there were about maybe 5 steps down to the lower half. It was a dank, dark, and very much basementy basement. To say it was creepy down there would be an understatement. The house itself carried a feeling with it. Never a feeling of safety. You never felt alone. On top of that fact, our home was the place of death of our grandparents, where my parents also kept their remains for the next 20 years. In our backyard was the Gorge, which was a waterway in the city where we lived, Victoria, BC, one of the most haunted cities in British Columbia, which was home to many tragic deaths. The first we knew of was in 1856, when the Point Elise Bridge, which was near our house, collapsed, taking with it 55 lives. Since then, many bodies have been found involving incidents of drowning, one notable murder in 1997, when a 16-year-old girl was brutally beaten and drowned in the gorge by her peers. My first experience, I guess we could say, was after my pet Daegu died. In life, Shaggy, the Daegu's name, was a serious escape artist, and he'd often get out of his cage. I would always find him because he would be drawn to the heat of the baseboard heater in my room, and I could hear his little tap, scurry, tap when he would get onto it. After he died, for months, every night, I would hear that same sound, tap, scurry, tap, on my heater. I do remember being scared, sad, and weirdly relieved to hear him. Later on, I was able to challenge that one, and I remembered it as just heater noises. That was just the beginning of so many more things to come, and paled in comparison to the experiences of my mum and brother in that house. When I was 11, I had my first experience with sleep paralysis. I would wake up, stuck. I could open my eyes, but I couldn't move. In my sleepy horror, I could see the black, shadowy figure of a man in my room, standing at the end of my bed. Always the same. Eventually, I learned if I went back to sleep, I would wake up and everything would go back to normal. That, on top of the terrifying recurring dreams I used to have, really affected me as a kid. My brother first experienced sleep paralysis when he was around 12. The sleep paralysis would continue for both of us until we moved out of the house in our late teens/early 20s. When I was 12, my brother was 9, and my dad brought us home a kitten. She was the cutest little pure black cat. As she got older, we realised she was maybe a bit nuts. She would literally wait for us to get home, stalk us, attack our ankles. Luckily, she always hid in the same spot behind the couch, so at the very least, we could see her coming after a while. Honestly, we could have done without her, but she plays a part in this story. My brother and I were not the only ones who experienced weird things in this house. One night, my mum was off to sleep and was laying in bed, and she felt a heavy weight on her feet. Thinking the cat had gotten into her room, she kicked her feet to move her off. As previously stated, she was not a cat you wanted around when you were sleeping. She wouldn't hesitate to attack you for any reason at all, unknown reasons. But the weight remained. My mum looked down at her feet to see an imprint on the bed, but nothing there to cause it. This ended up becoming a regular occurrence, but something she kind of got used to. She didn't tell us about this until we were in our 20s and living on our own. My mum would go on to tell us there were other things that she had experienced. Lights going out when she was in the basement, walls leaking but were bone dry, amongst other things that she wouldn't divulge. When my brother was around 16 years old, my dad built him a bedroom in the basement. Dad was thinking he was doing something cool, so Braid could have his own space. One night, my brother woke up to what felt like something pushing heavily down on his chest. He tried to sit up, but it pushed down harder. He eventually was able to sit up after the pressure released. Feeling a bit stunned and confused, he turned the light on, looked around and heard nothing. Being that he was used to sleep paralysis by this point, he just got back into bed. He was still awake when he suddenly felt the blanket flip up and something grab onto his ankles. He kicked his feet as hard as he could and he was out of there. He ran out of his room, upstairs, and slept behind the cushions of the couch for the remainder of the night. My brother still tells this story exactly the same and with the same fear to this day, almost 20 years later. Another instance in his haunted bedroom, which he refused to sleep in alone after that, was when he was around 17 and had his girlfriend sleeping over. They were both drifting off to sleep, and they hear a loud whoosh, and the bedroom door whipped open. Braid jumped out of bed to turn the light on, and again, nothing is there. The only window was the small one in his room, and that was closed at the time. So they both slept upstairs on the couches that night too. His now ex-girlfriend still corroborates this story. Another night, in the basement bedroom, my brother had one of his buddies spending the night. Being teenage boys and my brother's bedroom being so small, his friend decided he would just sleep on the couch that we had in the basement outside of my brother's room. When I say basement, I mean pipes, cement walls, that type of basement. When Braid woke the next morning, he walked out of his room to find his friend gone. He went upstairs and found him asleep on the couch. His friend went on to let him know he'd been hearing voices, speaking to him in a language he didn't recognize. Not quietly, loudly and mockingly. So he thought he probably should leave. Now, aside from growing up in all of that, as I said at the beginning of this, I also happened to grow up in one of the most haunted cities in BC, Canada. So, as a teenager, my friends and I loved to take advantage of this, and we'd frequent some of the most notorious haunted spots. Now, though we had a lot of fun, we typically left disappointed. When I was 16, me and my friend and her older brother thought we would take a drive to one of those haunted spaces. This time, the Uplands Golf Course in Cadborough Bay. We parked, we got out of the car, we were laughing and being silly kids, when I noticed something moving in the dark. I shot her very quick and very quiet, "Look," to the friends I was with. And though there was only the light of the moon, we could see a large rock. Personally, investing felt like something I'd get to later. Like a lot of people, I was focused on where my money was right now, not where it could be going. What changed for me was realizing that starting small and staying consistent matters much more than trying to know everything up front. You guys know I've worked with acorns before. I know them well. I know how diligently and ethically they work, and I've just been going through their app, and believe me, I genuinely love how simple it is and how approachable it feels. Acorns is a smart way to give your money a chance to grow without needing a finance degree or hours of your time. You can sign up in minutes and automatically invest spare money, even spare change, and adjust how often you're investing as your life changes. A feature that blew me away on the app is the Acorns Potential screen. It helps you understand the power of compounding over time and makes the idea of long-term investing feel calm, clear, and achievable. Acorns grows with you, supporting your big goals and your small goals. And it keeps everything in the one place so you're not juggling multiple finance apps. If you've been waiting for the right time to start, this is your sign. Sign up now and Acorns will boost your new account with a $5 bonus investment. Join over 14 million all-time customers who've already saved and invested over $27 billion. Head to acorns.com/darkparanormal or download the Acorns app to get started. Paid non-client endorsement. Compensation provides incentive to positively promote Acorns. T2 compensation provided. Potential subject to various factors such as customers' accounts, age, and investment settings. Does not include Acorns fees. Results do not predict or represent the performance of any Acorns portfolio. Investment results will vary. Investing involves risk. Acorns Advisors LLC, an SEC registered investment advisor. View important disclosures at acorns.com/darkparanormal. This episode is sponsored by BetterHelp. The new year doesn't require a brand new you. Sometimes it just calls for a less burdened one. I think a lot of us walk around carrying things we don't even realize we're holding. Fear, pressure, doubt, the need to be perfect. And over time, those things can start to feel normal even when they're weighing us down. I'll say this openly, I take part in therapy myself, and I can speak with nothing but praise about the process of sitting down with a professional, building that rapport, and slowly learning how your thoughts, emotions, and reactions fit together. It doesn't fix everything overnight, but it can help you understand what you're carrying and what you may be able to let go of. And that's where services like BetterHelp come in. BetterHelp makes it easy to get matched online with a qualified therapist. They work with fully licensed therapists in the US, and they handle the initial matching for you using just a short questionnaire, so you can focus on what you want to work on. And if that fit isn't right, you can switch therapists at any time from their tailored recommendations. BetterHelp has an average rating of 4.9 out of 5 for live sessions, based on over 1.7 million client reviews. BetterHelp make it easy to get matched online with a qualified therapist. Sign up and get 10% off at betterhelp.com. That's betterhelp.com. Today's episode of The Dark Paranormal is brought to you by Progressive Insurance. Fiscally responsible, financial geniuses, monetary magicians. These are things people say about drivers who switch their car insurance to Progressive and save hundreds. Because Progressive offers discounts for paying in full, owning a home, and more. Plus, you can count on their great customer service to help you when you need it. So your dollar goes a long way. Visit Progressive.com to see if you could save on car insurance. Progressive Casualty Insurance Companies and affiliates' potential savings will vary, not available in all states or situations. Maybe 100 feet away. That is, until it slowly started standing up. We all watched as this rock turned into a full outline of what looked like a woman in a white dress. We were all completely stunned at what we were seeing for what felt like minutes, but was probably seconds. Before, of course, clamoring over each other to get back into that car and get the hell out of there. Now, on to my next and most traumatizing, horrifying experience. One that rivals my brother's. Timeline-wise, they actually happened incredibly close together. When I was 20, I was pregnant with my first child. Open brackets, this is important only to impress that I was stone cold sober. Close brackets. And I was staying at my boyfriend's parents' house. whose brother also lived there at the time. A few weeks prior to my staying there, my boyfriend's brother told us a story of how he accidentally got too high on mushrooms and had the worst trip of his life. He told us he thought a demon had entered his room and was mocking him. Now, obviously, this was hilarious to us because, well, come on. It did not stay funny, though. At the time, my boyfriend and I were living apart, and he was sharing a room with his brother. The space was separated by a fabric room separator, like a huge curtain, and there were 2 doors. One door to his brother's side of the room, and a door to my boyfriend's. That night we went to bed, but being super pregnant, I was having a hard time falling asleep, so I began watching TV. Now, I understand that a lot of this has sounded insane, but this was by far the scariest and worst experience of my life. Because suddenly, as I'm laying there trying to sleep, I start hearing whispering on the other side of the curtain, where my boyfriend's brother was sleeping. So I called his name, thinking he was just being an ass, and it stopped. But it got so much worse. Because when the whispering stopped, the curtain separating the rooms began to pull back. I lay there watching in horror as a dark figure entered our space, slowly walked towards the bed. Open brackets, I'm literally starting to sweat as I write, close brackets. Stepped onto the edge of our bed and started running around the edge of the bed so fast that I couldn't see it. I could only feel the wind and hear the sound of whirring. After what felt like forever, and I have no idea how long, it suddenly just stopped. Only to start all over again. Once again, the sheet pulled back, the figure walked slowly into the room, stood at the end of the bed, stepped up onto the bed, and ran so fast around the edge until it disappeared. Now, I'm not a religious person, but I started to pray, and pray hard. You know what's even more fun than having a demon figure come and play on your bed? Having them mock you from behind a curtain while you pray. As I prayed to God, I could hear a mocking tone say, "God, please help. God, please," followed with laughter. I have never been so scared in my entire life. I woke up my boyfriend as soon as I had the wherewithal to even remember to do that, and he thought I was nuts. The next morning, I told his brother what had happened, and he looked horrified, realizing what he saw maybe wasn't so unreal. Unsurprisingly, I never stayed there again. After our son was born, the only way we would stay over, or let him stay over, was if he was in the second bedroom upstairs, beside his dad's parents' room. I sincerely wish I could say this was the last thing that I ever experienced, but the experiences continue. When my son was 4 and I was pregnant with my second child with my now husband, we moved into a house in Langford, BC, a little town just outside of Victoria. Now, this house was a little less scary than the last 2. In brackets, I'm starting to see the common denominator here, close brackets, but scary nonetheless. The first experience in this house was when I was about maybe 8 months pregnant, and happened to be the night after I sat by my grandfather's bedside as he passed. My son, Nate was asleep in his bed, and my husband was asleep next to me. Again, I'm hugely pregnant and uncomfortable. Open brackets, apparently this is also a theme. In fact, writing all of this out is drawing some weird parallels that I've never noticed before. Close brackets. And unable to sleep. So again, I'm watching TV in bed, and I start to hear scratching at the bedroom door. In brackets, I knew it wasn't my son. He wasn't quiet. He would only burst into rooms. This time, I woke up my husband as soon as I started to hear it. He woke up right away. That's the best thing about him being a light sleeper. And sat up, listening to the scratching. After maybe 30 seconds, this scratching turned into tapping. Then, bang! A huge smash on the bedroom door, and it whipped open. No one is on the other side of that door. I, even heavily pregnant, flew out of that room and woke up my son. Probably not the best move, but after what I'd seen happen, I refused to let him see that. I scooped him up, and we all slept together that night. That was definitely the main experience in that house, but not the only weird thing. After my second son was born, Nate would begin to experience sleepwalking while we lived in this house. Something he had never experienced prior, nor did he experience after. Although most of them were harmless, in brackets, one time he tried to pee in the dishwasher, that was just interesting. One time, on a night when I happened to be up, in the living room with the baby, Nate walked down the hall from his room, turned, went down the stairs to the front door, and started saying, "I have to go. Grandma's waiting for me." As he's trying to leave the house in the middle of the night. I thank God I wasn't in bed asleep for that. I was able to successfully get him back to bed, and we moved shortly after that. Our next house was great. The experiences minimal. This time it was our second born that the odd things started happening with. Gav was always one of those babies that would stare off into the corners and giggle. Weird things like that, but nothing too unusual. Gav was pretty young when he started talking. However, when he did, it was very strange. His first sentence? "They're still missing." At this point, he could say one word at a time. Mama, yes. Dada, yes. Yes. No. And so on. He was around 18 months old at this point. He would say this at seemingly random times for months. And every time he would say it, we would ask, "Who? Who is still missing?" And we would be met with a smile or no answer. Just before Gav was 2, he was still saying the sentence. We were still asking the questions. Who? Then he looked at me and said, "The kids, Mum. The kids are still missing." That was the last time he ever said it. Now, aside from this, around the same time, Gav would have been about 2, Nate was 6, and once again, wouldn't you know it, I'm pregnant with my third and final baby. It was late at night. My husband was working the late shift and I was home with both of my boys. I was just going about my business and was carrying Gav into the kitchen when he starts yelling, "No, Mum, no, don't go in there, the old man, he's there, don't go in there." Obviously, I backed the hell out of the kitchen, grabbed Nate, backed into the bathroom and closed the door. I was able to calm Gav down behind the closed door. we stayed in that bathroom for maybe 15 minutes before Gav would allow us out. Finally, I opened the bathroom door and peeked out. Gav asking, "Is he there?" I'm thinking, "I've no idea, man. I didn't see what you saw." But anyways, I fully opened the door and Gav was A-OK. We were all cleared to enter back into the house, and there was no old man to be screamed about. Well, that's it. Well, that's all I can remember now anyways. I'm sure I've missed some, but I feel like that was probably quite enough. I hope that someone enjoys listening or reading this. I certainly had an interesting time writing it, and I probably won't be sleeping tonight. I do hope I never have any reason to write to you again. Sincerely, Jacqui. Well, Jacqui, thank you exceptionally so for genuinely giving me an experience to read out that has put shivers down my spine on about 3 or 4 occasions. And I'm not saying that's too rare, but the way you went about telling your experience was both A, exceptionally easy to follow and visualize, and B, exceptionally believable. You say towards the end, Jacqui, that there are things that you're sure you haven't mentioned. Now, if those things do come back to you, we would all love to hear them. We would all love to hear more from you. So if any of them do, please let us know. And if you do reach back out to us, for my own personal gratification and for other people's, I expect, within your experience, there's a section where you put in brackets, "As I write this down, I'm starting to see more parallels." Now, I could understand the kind of pregnancy angle, but I get the feeling there was more to that either I'm not picking up completely after only reading a few times, or something that you may not have wrote down. So if we are missing something, do let us know also, so we can kind of get a fuller picture of how your plethora of experiences all knit together. But Jacqui, thank you so much for this experience for our pre-show for season 23. And it was just a bit of a change. I know it sounds almost like an oxymoron to say, as a change, we'll be telling a paranormal experience, but it is a change for our pre-show, because our full season 23 starts with our debut next Friday, the 23rd of January. So mark that date in your calendar, or even better, simply subscribe to the show, and that way you will not miss it when it drops. And also, so mark that date so circle next Friday in your calendar, or even better, subscribe to the show. That way you'll never miss it when it drops. And never forget, we are of course a fluid show in terms of how we place our experiences. Therefore, although season 23 is fully mapped out and full in terms of experiences, if the right experience comes through, we will find space for it. So if you have your own personal paranormal experience, either click the link in the show notes or go to thedarkparanormal.com and click where it says Submit My Experience. But for now, a huge thank you to Jacqui for this experience, and a huge thank you to each and every one of you who've made this show what it is. And next week, we look forward to our next chapter. Until then, stay safe and take care.